All right. Well, thank you guys for joining today to learn about UX mastery with information architecture. Now, this is actually more than just content. So today, what we're going to be discussing is information architecture layer and how it actually impacts the overall UX of your product. But first, I'm going to tell you a story, a tale of two cars. So there's this company A, and they know that they want to build a car, right? So they decided like, hey, we want to build a car. We kind of understand what it is. So let's do some concepting. And they decided to build this car and then figure out the different parts of the car. So you got make it stop department, make it move department, wheels, etc., horns. And of course, you got to have cup holders, right? And they decided, hey, we understand cars. This is what we're going to do. And this is what the final design looks like. And then they come out with the Homer, right? I don't know if you guys know The Simpsons. This is actually one episode, which makes a really great example. So they came out with the Homer, and people didn't like it. It was terrible, and it is even the spokesperson was really embarrassed to talk about or advertise this car. So what have I? The CEO of the company is really really sad. What have I done? Well, let's look at company B, which they should have done instead. By the way, I made up all these stories except the Simpson one. Um, so company B actually made a lot of effort in information architecture. They know that they want to build a car, but they're not like saying, hey, we know exactly how to build this, so we're going to actually just go for it. And so what they first did is really seek to understand the business technology, mental models, all these different things that actually fuels information architecture, make your UX better. And we all know this because we're UX people, right? And then they actually spend a lot of time creating blueprints, architecture, and really understand how each parts of technology work with one another. So then they are able to create a holistic user experience with all these different parts that work together very well. And they came up with my favorite car in the world, Volkswagen Beetle. I actually had two before. And so they're getting these great reviews from people. Woo, I love it. And of course, who's making money? The CEO, right? This is all we want. This is what we're trying to accomplish with our business. So what's the point of the story? I can actually really help you with your holistic strategy, right? You form the structure based on the feature function. Each department has its own strategy, and that's not good because if you look at a lot of enterprise products, their navigation is by org structure. The company B spends a lot of time in this information architecture, and they actually had a holistic strategy on top of each individual department strategy that actually work together as a whole. Hi, I'm Alex. I have 20 plus years of experience in UX. I just want to share a little bit of personal things with you. This is my kitty cat. Her name is Mochi. She likes to sleep with her tongue out. This is my little dog, Chewy. She also likes to sleep with her tongue out. This is Hagrid. He smiles. He's smiling right here. He smiles when he's feeling guilty or when he's happy to see you. And this is Kato caught in the middle of making a lie to me about was not fed that morning. And this is Smaug. He's the latest family member, and he's super cute. I would like to train him to walk on a leash at some point. So this is about my professional career adventure. The first 10 years-ish of my professional career, is all about consumer-facing products. And I picked up all these different skills on the way. And the last 10 years of my career-ish is all about the enterprise type of products, because actually after I got in 2010, I found it actually way more interesting because I'm one of those nerds. I really like to have hard problems to solve. So today we're going to have a really quick crash course on IA. I'm not going to go into depth of discussion, but what I really want to do is that, like, by the end of this presentation, I am hoping that you understand how to apply IA to your UX work, and you're going to be able to start it, and like recommendation on where do you actually learn more information about information architecture. I hope that sounds good to you guys. We're going to start now. So crash course. It is more than just sitemap and navs and content strategy. Why do business not invest time? Well, there's lack of understanding. I actually did a Google search on information architecture. I really can't find any in-depth stuff. It's really all talking about theory. There's a lack of alignment taxonomy. That's one of the most important things that people ignore. Lack of real-world examples, right? The things I'm going to be showing today are the stuff I actually created and have worked as part of my UX process. Lack of learning path. Hey, car sort, tree, testing, that's it. That's all we learn in school. And it does take a lot of time, but it's worth investment because you save a lot of time later. So this is the Elements of User Experience by Jesse James Garrett. This still holds true today. And what we're often forget as part of our UX process is the information architecture interaction design. And part of that is also the information design that derives from information architecture, as well as the functional specification and content requirements, often ignored. So what really is IA? IA is the practice of organizing, structuring, and labeling information, right? That is just the beginning of it. But what is the purpose? It's to align the UX structure with user and business intent to make it easy for users to accomplish the goals and access what they need quickly and efficiently, right? This is actually the purpose of it. It is how the business is actually defined, right? This is mind blown, but this is what I really can do. IA is about sense making. A is about having a growth mindset. It does take system thinking. IA is actually design. IA is easy. Nope, it's not. I lied. But the benefits of IA well done is that you can improve your system thinking. You're going to start understanding how complex things work together, how are related to one another. You're able to align stakeholders because everybody's communicating the same way and have same shared understanding. You're going to be able to improve user sentiment because UX is now a lot better. It scales UX with the future because you understand how the structure is organized and you can plan for an organic growth of your product suite. And then you can affect positive changes, right? Social changes. This is already happening. We're seeing with technology. And it does increase the bottom line. People are happy, they're making money. Now, I'm going to dive into practical IA. This is how you can infuse IA into your end-to-end process. Now, I'm going really fast because I have a lot of content to share. Please tell me to slow down if there's in-depth things that you want to know. But we also have time at the end to ask questions. So what can you do with information architecture? It's a lot of it is really actually informing the strategy, right? It's identifying new opportunities, a prioritization, and all these things through different kind of roadmaps for technology, business, UX, you name it. And you're able to identify opportunities for improvement within process, redundancy, gaps, all these things. These are just some examples. And you can also improve overall UX because it's research backed, there's better user flow and wayfinding, interaction design, and also, again, all these different strategies and consistency. Okay, I will go a little bit slow. I'm sorry. Thank you for letting me know. And so when you're working on information architecture, who do you work closely with? This is actually a question I got from someone. You actually work a lot with the domain experts because information architects, our job is to really understand, honestly, all the things that's relevant, right? You got to understand the user, you got to understand technology, but not just that technology, but how the technology works with other technology. Because for you work on an enterprise product, you can't just know about this one, like how they are connected, how they're related to one another. You got to work with your stakeholders so they're getting aligned, they understand the technology. Part of your job is really to teach people on what you've learned, right? The complex things that you're simplifying for them. And then, of course, the other UX people, because again, our job is to inform and to teach other people and get in alignment. Those are very, very important things. I feel like we are not actually doing very much as a part of our UX process. So this is basically the IA framework that I use, my general action plan. I have done every single one of these things, and I'm sure there are things I forgot to put on here. It's really, again, a lot of research. You got to make best friends with your researcher. You got to define the mess. You got to identify and learn about the mess. You got to organize the mess in different ways, right? A lot of people just do one way and they're done. But you got to do different ways to see which one matches the user's mental model the best so that it makes it a lot easier for them to get up to speed and learn things. It is about diagramming, understanding the mess, and identifying relationship between the messes. You got to design. There's a lot of work in here. People just say, "Oh, information architecture is navigation." No, it's actually hierarchy, the interactions, the flows, the information arrangement design. How we put things together. Very importantly, process. That's actually a part of our work. Don't forget it. And wayfinding. And there's test iteration. I'm going to talk about that in the next slide. and release and learn, etc. Now you can jump in any parts you want. Currently, I'm doing the defining the mess as well as iterate design and doing interaction design. So it just depends on where you are in your workflow or the life cycle of your product. These are some of the messes you have to define. Start with taxonomy if you can. Everybody needs to have the same understanding and definition of everything. So for example, in Seattle area, we call a can of soda, we call it pop. But apparently in New York, they call it what? They call it soda or Coke. So it's very different. We got to have same understanding of what pop means. And that applies to technology and business. We got to, again, understand the messes of user, business, and technology. How are people working together? How are people working together to support their users and customers, right? What are the current solutions, pain points? And the thing that we all forget is about the relationships between things. Now, relationship is really important because it gives us context around everything. If you don't have the right context, you're not going to be able to help users meet their goals. And this will actually uncover even more messes to untangle. And if you like to learn, that's awesome. This is my IA toolkit. So there are a whole bunch of different research methods. Most people talk about only cart sorting and tree testing, but all these other ones I've identified here are ones you can actually use to inform information architect work that you need to do and the designs that you need to do. Deliverables, I love to draw. Every time I have a concept I don't understand or trying to understand, I'm drawing all these things. It could be pencil, it could be using something like Lucidchart, whatever you want. And I do want to call out, very importantly, interactive prototyping is super crucial, right? The problem with Figma today is that we're all doing components and it just feels like, well, that's been tested, so we can just use this. But now we become what? Layout artists, right? We still need to test whether that interaction in a context is working or not. And there's three types of diagram to illustrate your knowledge, right? There's the ones that answers when, which is time-based. There's ones that answers what and where, which is the arrangement. And there's one that answers context, answers which and why. For more information about this, please go read Stuck Diagram Helps by Abby Covert. It's such a great book. It's going to help you get started. Now, here's the IA driven project example I have for you. I worked in a medical healthcare company prior to working at Google, and I want to share with you how we were able to infuse IA as part of this project, and ultimately it actually improved our learning, machine learning model and AI training process. So the project is called Medical Case Context, and it started out as a very small UI improvement project. But after examining all the information architecture, understanding how the process worked for the users, as well as how the business works and the support and everything, it became a service design project to improve the AI training model, which benefits everything else I just talked about that were problematic, right? Process, structure, new data collection model, improving the UI for the product, and improving how we communicate with the customers, right? Most people don't think about that. They think, oh, that's marketing, let's leave it alone. But actually, that is also a part of the holistic process. So let me tell you about how the platform works so the story actually makes sense. Okay, so for this company, what they did was that they're trying to help surgeons get better at their technical skills, such as bimanual dexterity, depth perception, your speed. Those are 3 things out of the 5. I don't remember what the other 2 are. But anyway, what they do is in the surgery, we have a product in there to help users record and upload their surgical videos. Now that gets sent to us and we start annotating it. We clean up the video and everything. And once that's ready to go, we send it out to objective reviewers who are actually the crowd people that actually do the scores, as well as expert surgeons who can provide the qualitative comments. Once that's ready, we actually use all those content and data that's provided to us to train the machines to identify things inside the body that's happening during the surgery. And then we will pass that information with the score and the qualitative feedback to the surgeons. And that's where they go to a website and they can check, understand how they're doing in terms of their learning path. So this is a starting project, right? They came to me and say, hey, Alex, this UI doesn't work because people are not submitting any contacts, only 6%, and the ones that submit are terrible and they're dirty. I don't really know, what can we do to improve the UI of this thing to make it better? So we took a look at it, and I want to call out that this is the world's largest UI button I have ever seen in my life. But there's a reason, because it's really difficult for people to actually touch the touch screen because it's a terrible response and we need a bigger target. So don't laugh, it is the world's biggest button. So first of all, I actually realized, let's just change the UI. Let's go actually understand how our products are being used. I observed 23 hours of live surgery, different types of surgery, to understand the orchestration, and I mapped out what I saw. And these are two examples of operating room. And what we see is that our product right here is hidden in a place that's really hard to get to. You got nurses, doctor assistants, circulator. This person goes in and out of the room, right? And then we have another operating room where the hardware is actually located in another adjacent room that people actually don't go. They hit record and they leave, and they don't really, add any more context. So who are actually the user from my observation? It's actually the nurses, right? So we are relying on surgeons to provide with case context, but it's actually the nurses actually touching the product, right? And a lot of times they are not allowed to add information about the surgery, or they just don't know what happened inside the body, right? That's what intraoperative surgeries are, is what's happening inside the body. And so what happened is they don't provide the right context, is that when the reviewer receives the video, you see that, hey, additional case context. So then they're reviewing based on what they know about the surgery, like just the standard surgery, not taking consideration of the situation. So they don't really understand the context. And what happens is now we have reviewers and performers who are mad at each other, and the reviewer and the performance like, I don't trust this company anymore. I'm not giving the right information because you didn't take in consideration of X, Y, and Z, and you're giving me a bad review and a bad score. And then of course the response back to them from the reviewers like, hey, you didn't give me anything. I don't know these things. How can I review you correctly, right? And then from that, I said, okay, that's what's happening in the process. Now we got to understand, what are we doing on our side that's making things better or making things worse. So I decided, hey, I got to understand the internal machine learning end-to-end process. And part of it is really understand the video annotation about the computer vision, like how are we training, right? So I went and talked to the different people in the media Q team that does a video cleaning and really identify more IA projects to improve the annotation process in the media tool. So that's a brand new project that just came out of this, right? How can we actually improve the holistic experience? And then I went and learned about the AI training model and then ML data end-to-end life cycle to understand what we do in terms of getting the data in. Like, how do we get from video to actually get to a point where now the AI is able to say, hey, this is a prostatectomy, and we have identified that you are taking way longer time to do suturing, or that we've identified that you have dropped a needle a few times, right? So it's like, how do we actually go from the video to this point? And understanding that, I'm not going to actually go through the process with you, but I want to show you that we identified what this looks like. And I was able to map the user pain points to where these things are happening during our AI training. So 6% of videos has very little context, right? The expert review here, lack of content to provide to them. And then poor quality data from either here or 6% that's entered. We have really terrible quality data, which then we cannot use to train the computer vision. And then so therefore at the end, it's really difficult to identify the ML classifiers, right? Spelling errors, grammar, just missing words, etc. So then what I did was I started overlaying the E2E process together, understanding when are we communicating with people, with our users. So within 24 hours, these are things happening, media processing, and there's like a review period to allow the reviewers to put in thoughtful comments, etc. And then we release a case report, basically the report card, to the performing surgeon, let them know what's going on. This is the company wanted to make sure that they get the reports as fast as possible. So they made a rule like we got to do this within 12 hours. So we have to identify all these different problems, right? And review cases, people submitting things are working, and then people getting really angry, right? So what are actually the issues that we have to identify information architecture? The process issues, efficiency use of time, data quality issue, right? It's unstructured data that's being entered and it's really bad for ML. The up tool, right? It's really difficult screen touching, difficult to input information, and it's not the surgeon that's actually touching that product. And then the user engagement. What are we actually communicating to users, and when are we communicating to them? Are the things we tell them actually valuable? And then of course, there's the physical location, which I showed you earlier in the layout. People aren't able to actually get to the product inside the operating room. So what do, right? So this is a video tool before, right? This is what's happening, unstructured data, only 6% videos being uploaded with any case context. So what we did is work with surgeons and classify surgeries. So we would work with each specialty, identify the different surgeries within that specialty, and identify specific type of situations that would really impact the outcome of the surgery, right? So classifier, identify, we narrow down the set with surgery types of the taxonomy because we want to put guardrail about receiving clean data from our users. Structured data inputs means what? Additional ML classifiers, right? But we still kept the additional notes area for unstructured data, just in case there's things that's super out of ordinary, we can still learn from it. And this is a communication we're sending to users when we receive their video, right? Look at this. What's the only call to action? Support. So we're getting a lot of support tickets from people telling us, oh, hey, I forgot to tell you X, I forgot to tell you Y. And then when they go and check on their website, this page is where they kind of like see, the video of the surgery, all the feedback, etc. Look at this. It's really hard to find. First of all, it was hidden, right? The architecture is terrible, so that it was hidden page. People can't find it, and there's no guidance on what type of information we want them to tell us. So after the improvement, what we did is we added a valuable call to action, like, hey, give us more case context. And this is the only thing we received from you. It's not enough. And this is why you got to do it within 12 hours, right? We give you extra time to do this, but after 12 hours, you can still add it, but the reviewers may not have seen it. So we're basically telling them this is the value of why you want to do this thing, because we have restructured our process. And then we also did is that using the same exact way to input data, we put it in here, quick buttons so they understand, okay, for this type of surgery, these are the things that's actually valuable to the reviewers to give actually valuable, actionable feedback. Now, this is the part where that's actually took a lot of negotiation with stakeholders in the business, right? So I was talking about how, people are, this is just our timeline, right? 0 hours submitting video, etc. What we found out is, look at a lot of data, found out that, hey, look, people are actually not opening their report about 24 hours or later because they're surgeons, they don't have time, and they're not in a rush to look at these case reports. So there are all this time, look at this, all this time that's wasted that we could be doing something to service them, right? So what we did is I added additional time. This is artificial time where we held the video before we release it to the reviewer. So this part of it really made it easier. And another thing is, if right here from the beginning, if the video uploaded from the operating room and the nurse doesn't have enough context, that's okay. We are shifting the input of the context. We're shifting that responsibility back to the surgeon by giving them this 12 hours, extra 12 hours to add the context, right? So after doing these things, we are able to improve the user experience. And in 30 days, just in 30 days alone, we were able to create 15 additional machine learning classifiers. And that increased over time, right? 6% to 55% video review with context. That's a huge improvement for 1 month. And then after that, it increased to 65% and held steady for the next year or so. And then engagement emails improvements as well. We got, after that, we're starting to get a whole bunch of comments loving our product, saying, hey, you know what, this is actually super useful for me. I love it. And here's some of the few design diagram examples I have used before. The intended audience is really for myself. First of all, I gotta understand it so I can explain something to other people, like a really difficult concept. A way to practice, actually, you guys, is actually talking with a little kid, trying to explain a concept to them, right? I try to explain cloud technology to my daughter, and you know, if you can explain something easy in a way that's easy to kids, then you can actually do that in a grander level, right? Your tech engine partners are your best friends too, and so are your front and back end engineers, and of course, other UX designers. It would be really great if UX designer did this type of work in each of the areas and then put it together to kind of see how the big picture fits or does not fit well. This is the entity relationship diagram that I have created. This is actually helping us understand the relationship between users, user actions, objects, and metadata, right? This is important because it actually informed me about the UI affordance that I need to do, about the page flow, about talking with the engineers, making sure that capability are built a certain way and we're not over engineering it. Right, this is super important. I created this and I work with the backend and front end engineers to make sure that I have identified the relationships correctly. Here's one where I wanted to show the page stakes, the interaction flow, the decision that has to be made at that point when the page load or somebody takes an action, and the error checking orders. I firmly believe that all these things are actually part of user experience, including writing error, including writing the priority of the error checking. These are things that we got to start thinking about because that actually impacts the interaction design, wayfinding. This is a business and behavior I'm trying to convey to the developers. The user interaction triggered, error checking flow. This is just like in the more detailed view of the previous one. Now, I was working at a hardware company. Actually, it's a software company that had a hardware component. So I really need to understand the hardware to software connection and how to integrate them. So this one conveys layout, technology use, and the connections. I actually make my designer make these kind of diagrams because I want everybody to have greater understanding. So now what's really awesome about this, that now UX teams create these things to show that we understand it. We're now getting street creds from technologists, right, from business, we know what we're doing. And then customer success team started adopting this type of diagram as part of their customer training process to help them figure out how to actually connect the service together. It's pretty neat. Now, this is a hybrid one. I'm not actually, again, go into details, but when you look at the slides, when we share the slides, I encourage you to actually looking deeper about this. It's a hybrid type of diagram I created, and the intent of the diagram is to show when to use what feature and why, right? I am currently responsible for doing Google Kubernetes engine security, right? After being in the space for about 2 years, it's just so difficult for users to understand when to use what and why do they need to use it, because there are a lot of competing products. Like, hey, you can put security here, you can put security here, but people don't know that. And they don't know, like, should I use this one? Should I use that one? And all the articles about this topic is everywhere, right? There's not an actually way for user to go, okay, this is the baseline, what I need to know, and how are these different products helping me do the thing that I am trying to accomplish, okay? So I put this together to help me understand how things work and kind of identify areas of opportunity where we can help users learn, get up to speed a lot faster, because we're now conveying content in a way that is simple to understand. Here's some books I highly recommend for you guys to kind of go and explore if you want to learn about, information architecture and put it as part of your process. It is an investment in your time, but again, upfront investment equals less tweaking and problem solving, okay? Information architecture stuff, very important, diagramming. I highly, highly encourage you to pick up some soft skills. How to influence, like Dale Carnegie's book, you got to read it, right? These are all the things that's going to fuel you as a professional and become a thought leader. Part of this job is really communicating with other people, working with other people, and getting to a greater understanding that is shared amongst everybody else. Now, hard skill sets, you've got to do interactive prototyping, okay? What I have seen so far in the industry is a lot of people just use Figma, and when they do interactive prototyping, it's very shallow, or it just like, click on this and then this goes to the next page, but we're actually not showing the micro interaction between things. And when we're doing that type of testing, we're not actually doing testing any user flow and wayfinding. So I would encourage you to pick up other tools to help you make that happen. All right, because I don't want to see us being so smart, super motivated, but then we're just layout artists because we have to use specific components, right? Let's not do that. Let's make sure that the components are used in the right context and actually supports user journey success. Okay, I know I went really fast, so there's page numbers down here. If you have questions, I hope you saw that. And so here's, I want to have you guys ask me questions if you have any. And if you can, please email me, and I will actually like to know what would you like me to talk about next. Slower, or write about slower. Okay, drop your questions. Here's a question to Alex. How do you successfully introduce IA to the company's culture and workflow? I'm in information architecture, and the place I currently work is taking enterprise-level projects, but IA and its understanding are absent among stakeholders and the designers too. What would I advise? Okay, what I'm going to advise to you is start doing, look at me going back, start actually showing that you understand the technology. This is so important because what people don't understand is that technology really impacts what's going on, right? And you showing interest with your technologists and the business, like what I did here, telling them like, hey, I know we built this ML model, but that's right. I know that we did this processing. We have this rule about sending report cards out within 12 hours, but it's actually people don't need it within 12 hours, right? So it's really start showing them diagrams, because I've seen people argue in like product requirements document. They're just arguing back and forth. But if you put a visual in front of people, this is the best way to convey, right? They can also give you input and feedback. So the thing about introducing the business, introduce it early, start showing them this type of diagram, start talking to them about this, do presentations, right? And test everything. Everything I ship has a reason, and has a good reason, because they are research backed. So I don't know if that's actually answering your question, but involve people early, talk to them, and then start using these things. They'll start seeing the value when they will adopt it. And that's actually what I'm doing right now at Google. I actually see the last 10, 15 years, or less and less people are doing this type of hard work, and it needs to be done. I hope I answer your question. If not, please ping me LinkedIn. I will happy to talk about it. Any tools other than Figma you would recommend? Axure, AXURE. I love this tool. It's so easy to use. You don't have to build like the drop-down states like you have to do in Figma. It's actually built in all these different things, and you can make it look like what you want. So what I do is I use Axure to create interactive prototypes, which looks and acts, behaves like the real product, right? Not 100%, but like 90%, right? But that way, when I do a usability test, I go, hey, here's the product. Try to go create a cluster. And then we just observe and see where they go, right? Now I know, oh, wow, they thought this thing was where they needed to go. They went there instead. Wow, now I understand. Wow, the user flow doesn't work, right? So Axure is my go-to tool. That is the one tool I can use, and you can actually share components with another people. So Axure, I'm the Axure queen. Okay. Oh, since somebody else said something?
Yeah, I can go ahead and read these out for you.
Okay, thank you.
You don't have to monitor the chat. Yeah, of
Thank
course.
you.
Um, our next question says, as someone working on a pretty technical project right now, mortgage escrow processing, we find ourselves constantly learning new information about the way users work and all the different considerations we have to make for the insurance world. This can be pretty difficult for us as we tend to work under pretty strict timelines, and updating in IA can eat into that. Do you have any strategies to determine how much detail is enough for a UX team to move forward with the product development process?
Yeah. Let's see. I'm gonna jump forward. Okay. So I don't have an easier example for you, but you want to start out. Sorry, I'm reading this again. Do you have any strategy to determine how much detail is enough? How much detail is enough is really the okay. So the technology stuff, business don't really need to they can sort of understand we're doing ML, right? But they don't need to understand the entire process. For example, how data comes in, how it's being cleaned, all that. They don't really need to know that, but they need to know how that is impacting the user experience, right? So I always do is like I map out the user journey, I identify the pinpoints, right? And then what I do is, even though there are like all these problems we need to solve, what I do is look at the match it with the business outcomes and say, you know what, this area is the most important because it's dropping, right? So I'm not like constantly going, oh my God, I'm updating this, I'm updating that. So right now I've identified this thing. This is all I need to do. And what I show here is user experience, meaning I show something like this guy. Oops, like this guy, right? This is the fidelity you probably need when you're working with the engineers, because by this point, you know, first of all, you're building your street cred, which is super important. But here, like they can understand how to functionally how things work between users and you know the different states that needs to be triggered, right? So this for me minimally is something I always create, and engineers love this. This actually takes reduces the amount of work they have to do, and we're all in alignment. Um, how much details? Yeah, I don't know if I answered your question correctly, but like that's like this is what you need. This is the only thing you need if you're just starting out. Cool.
Awesome. Laura asked for some clarification here. She said, apologies if I missed this. Did you mention the timeline of this process? For example, what you showed, how long from start to finish?
Okay, let me go back here. This guy, I think you're referring to this process over here. So what I do is probably 20% or 30% of my projects I built into the information design work. I would really, before I even start tackling, you know, what the layout looks like, whatever, I really understand the big picture first, right? And the big picture doesn't just mean my security area, right? It's like security area, how it matches with other stuff, right? And so this is not really a process, right? But I know that for each project, I will build in about 30% of the time for it. This is just a playbook, like, hey, if you need to understand, define a mess, these are things you need to go do. And these are the design things that you can deliver to people to help them understand the importance of information architecture design and how it impacts the different groups, right, within the company as well as the users. So this is not a process. It's a framework. You kind of basically pick what you need to do at the time, right? It's really, really flexible. There's no rule about this. Okay, I think that was the last question.
Yeah, we have a few more minutes.
Oh,
Got one more from Santosh. They ask, any advice how to handle projects where we do not know the length and breadth of the project, the multiple microsites getting converted to one pretty technical project, personas are generic, no journey map. Is there a way to handle this kind of framework?
okay. That sounds like my projects. Don't really know the length and the breadth of the project. So before I actually, again, tackle this project, right? You talking about here, different microsites, right? Relationship. Understand the relationship between the microsites. What's the purpose of those microsites, right? And how does the relationship work together holistically to achieve the company goals, right? So you really got to understand that. and then therefore kind of figure out, okay, this microsite had this strategy, but this strategy actually improves the relationship between this strategy, this microsite and this microsite, right? So this really takes somebody, information architect, from the high level. Like you got to look at the bird's eye view, and then looking at the small one, how they match together. Okay, so that's how I usually handle my project. I start the bird's eye view, right? While I'm starting the bird's eye view, I'm also trying to understand the technology, and I will constantly tweak based on what I know from different people. So all these information architecture diagrams are actually living documents, right? You're always going to improve. You're always going to find more information. At some point, you do say, okay, I know enough now to actually execute on it, actually start creating designs. You can stop. You can stop. You don't need to tweak those anymore. Just stop. Now use the information you already know and start executing on the designing. I hope that answered your question.
Great. We have one more from Jing asking, how do you persuade the upper level if they stress there's not enough budget, but the information architecture problem needs to be restructured? It is a combination between education as well as persuasion, or maybe show the scalability of the product to point out the priority and future possibilities. I really want to obtain your insights on how to communicate to solve the problem without enough budget.
There's never enough budget, is there? Okay, here I'll tell you what. I never tell people, I never tell my managers or anybody like, hey, I'm gonna carve out some time to do some information architecture, because people think, again, that's just content, right? But when I actually do start presenting these things, people are like always in awe. They're like, oh my gosh, I understand this now, right? Because you put a lot of thought into it, and seeing is believing. Graphing, right? So this is how I start doing it with my stakeholders. I just started like doing these things, and I go, hey, help me understand this technology, because that's part of my job. I take notes, and then I'll come back, I create a diagram, I show it to them. And they actually now start seeing the value of it, right? This is a slow process because it is about educating people what IA is really about, right? And then actually showing them the value of it. So I'm going to encourage you, you have to start small, but start showing these type of graphs, diagrams, or whatever you learn, like whatever deliverables you have, start showing them, present it, right? And figure out a way to tie it to the problems you're trying to solve for your users, okay? It is a slow process. It's never easy, but that's how I do it. I sneak it in, and then it becomes something that's very valuable for the company, and they just kind of, okay, you do your thing, Alex. So that's how I do it. I don't know if that helps, but I mean, sometimes you're just going to have to be a little bit sneaky, strategically sneaky.
All right, and we have time for a couple more. Here's one more from Marina asking, in terms of being able to sit in on sessions to understand how the product is being used, was there anything specific that you presented to show the value of that UX research? I find that convincing the business to sit with users is one of my biggest challenges, since UX research is still a new discipline within the company.
Yeah. So when you say convincing the business to sit with the users, I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means having them participate in research or anything like that. How the product is being used. Yes, that example I showed you, basically with what I identified, I went to the business and the technology. I said, you guys, our business is based on what? It's based on all these ML classifiers and computer vision, like figuring things out. But look at the data we're getting, right? 6% data, and then it's crappy, right? So basically using that, I work with the engineering team and figure out, wait, why are we collecting unstructured data? Why are we not doing structured data instead, making it clean and make it easy for users? So, oh, these are the valuable information I need to give, right? So just from that, I actually never, ever even talk about this is information architecture with the people that I'm working with, because they're gonna, again, like give the reaction, oh, it's too much time, it's just content, right? It's just nav site, navigation, we already know that. No, it's not. It's all these different things. So I don't talk about it in a way because I actually don't want to make them feel like, oh, we don't want to do this. But that's what I do. I just, yeah. I hope I answered that question.
Great. We have one more. This question reads, is it easy to keep working on a design? How do you measure if it is a good time to do usability testing?
Yeah. So what I usually do is, what we usually do and what we found was really interesting is that once you have a design you feel pretty good about, right? we have like designers from different teams to actually do heuristic evaluations, because that actually catches a lot of problems already. And once we actually identify those problems, I would take those things, take it back to my prototype, improve it. Then I usability that set of prototypes. Because at that point, I've addressed all the stuff that other experts have found. So that's when I do it. And usually I would do the usability test at least probably about 6 weeks before shipping. So that still gives me 4 weeks of time to figure out and work with the engineers to make sure that if there are any blockers for UX, that we actually can address it. So that's usually a time frame I deal with. Yeah. Cool. You're welcome.
All righty. Well, we're at 12:15 now. If there are no other questions, we can wrap up this wonderful session. Alex, thank you so much. I feel like everyone got a lot out of this. Not seeing any additional questions. So yeah, the session is officially concluded. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
See you in the next one.